How you doing, everybody? Hello, hello. Welcome to today's show. Happy Monday. Happy Thanksgiving week. And I know we got the turkey, we got the sides and everything coming up later this week, but that will not slow us down when it comes to the news and the rumors. Well, everyone, we're getting some breaking news coming in. As I'm editing this video, John Heyman says Yusei Kikuchi is heading to the Angels, 3 years and $63 million. I think this is a great ad for the Angels. Kikuchi was solid this year between the Astros and the Blue Jays. 32 stars, 175 and two-thirds innings, ERA at a 4.05, FIP at a 3.46, solid strikeout to walk ratio, 10.5 strikeouts per nine, 2.25 walks per nine, just over a home run per nine. But overall, a great season this past year. He actually got better when he went to the Astros. He tinkered with his pitch mix a little bit, and he saw great results. Now, for the Angels, he projects to be the ace of the staff as of right now. Their starting pitching was absolutely atrocious last year. Now, one guy I was wondering if they were going to go after was Jack Flaherty, a guy that had a great season this past year with the Dodgers and the Tigers, but kind of lacked a track record because of all the injuries he's been having going back to 2020. Jack Flaherty, compared to the other pitchers on the market like Corbin Burns, Blake Snell, Max Fried, I would say he's a tier below those guys. So, I was wondering if the Angels were going to have a bit of a tough time attracting those top pitchers to come to them because they've been a mess over the last few years. Even with all the stars they've had, they can't win games. But I was wondering if maybe someone like Jack Flaherty could be lured to go there. If you had signed Flaherty, he would be the guy in that staff. But, a risk worth taking because you have trouble attracting the top pitchers to go there. And with Artie Moreno, he usually doesn't like to give out long-term deals for pitchers. So, I figured maybe Flaherty, he won't get too long of a deal like someone like Corbin Burns. But Kikuchi, I think, makes a lot of sense. He's on a 3-year deal. $63 million, that's a pretty penny. But, if you take a look at Kikuchi's numbers this past year, he had a 3.5 Fangraph wins above replacement. That's worth just under $30 million when you think about a one win above replacement is worth $8 million on average. So for a 3-year, $63 million deal, I think this is a good deal. I think it's worth it. This is a guy that's been a workhorse. He's been durable, had a good season this past year. I think it's a good ad for the Angels. They needed to add pitching in any way, shape, or form, but not just pitching, but just good, talented pitching to help anchor the rotation. I think if you have someone like Jose Soriano, who did look pretty good this past year, step up for them. Maybe Reed Detmers can get himself together. Tyler Anderson was pretty solid this past year. Maybe we could see some improvement with the Angels pitching staff. I wonder if they stop here. Could they go after another guy out there? They did add Kyle Hendricks, but let's see what Kyle Hendricks has left in the tank at this point. But overall, I think this is a great move for the Angels, a step in the right direction. According to Buster Olney, teams are expected to make offers to Juan Soto this week. Now, here is the tweet. Sources involved in the Juan Soto talks expect the teams will begin forwarding offers this week. To date, the process has been about Soto meeting with teams and club officials and about those officials getting to know Soto. So obviously, we know the deal with Juan Soto. He's very good. One of the best free agents that we've seen since Alex Rodriguez back in 2000. Obviously, we had Ohtani last year as well, but Juan Soto, he is pretty good. Coming off a career year, hit 288, a 180 WRC plus, 41 homers, and 8.1 Fangraph wins above replacement overall at 25 years old. Keep that in mind. So we've all been wondering, what kind of a contract is Juan Soto going to get? Well, spoiler alert, he's going to get a lot of money. But what is that figure going to be? Well, I came up with a little bit of math here on this little envelope, and this is what I came up with. Now, I based it off of wins above replacement. Remember, each win above replacement is worth an average of $8 million. So what I came up with from his age 26 to 32 season, I think he is very well capable of averaging a 7 wins above replacement during that time. I actually think that might be pretty conservative. I think he could go even further than that. But let's say, hey, injuries can come into play, whatnot. That would add up total over the next 7 seasons to 49 wins. So 49 wins times $8 million. That is $392 million. So from his age 33 to 34 season, I came up with an average of 6 wins per season. That would be 12 total. 12 times 8 is 96. And then as he gets older, I just keep going down a little bit further. 35 to 36, I think he can average 5 wins above replacement during that time. 37 to 38, I think it can be a 4 per season. And from 39 to 40, I think can be a 3 per season. So when you add all of that up, when you take the wins above replacement total, which is 85, times $8 million, that comes out to $680 million. So I think he's going to get somewhere in the $650 to $700 million range over 15 years. That's what I'm going to bet. I think he could maybe even go over $700 million, depending on what the bidding looks like. And hey, you never know what Steve Cohen is going to do. I expect Steve Cohen to make a very strong offer to start things off. I think he wants to set the tone. Steve Cohen, it's already been reported that he is willing to go $50 million above the next team. So I do think the Mets are going to come out with a very strong offer there. The Yankees, honestly, I think they'll put in a good first offer, but I'm looking for the Yankees towards the end of the negotiations. I think he will circle back to the Yankees, and I think he'll give them a chance to match whatever the top offer is, or whatever team that he's liking the most. Whatever that offer is that he's leaning towards, I think he will give the Yankees a chance to match it. Who knows, what happens here with the Red Sox, according to all the agents, David Ortiz, all the reports, they are very interested in Juan Soto. We've seen John Henry break out the checkbook in the past. In the last few years, not so much, but let's see what he does here with Juan Soto. Maybe the Red Sox can shock some people. I don't know. And then obviously we got some other teams here. I would actually think the Blue Jays might end up making a very strong offer to start things off. I could see them being like, hey, listen, we're serious here. We're in this thing. We're going to make you a very strong offer. So I wonder what kind of an offer the Blue Jays are going to make to start things off. I think they also, like the Mets, would like to set the tone as well. And, another team too, look out for the Phillies, right? John Middleton, this is a guy that wants to win. He wants to put together a championship team. And listen, Dave Dombrowski, hey, when it comes to, what he can do in negotiations, he's landed big players in the past. I would not count out the Phillies. I think they're a bit of a dark horse, in my opinion, especially when you have an owner like John Middleton. Everyone wants to talk about Steve Cohen, right? And yeah, Steve Cohen, money bags for days, but listen, John Middleton, he could absolutely, say to, Dave Dombrowski, listen, hey, this is what we're going to do. Let's go make this guy an offer that we feel is very competitive. So look out for the Phillies here. In the end, though, I am expecting the Mets to end up making a very strong offer to start things off, but we will have to keep our eyes on this week. Up next, the Red Sox could be thinking about moving Rafael Devers off third base. Now, we got a report yesterday from Sean McAdam of Mass Live saying that there have been some internal discussions about moving Rafael Devers off third base at some point, and Arenado is viewed as a potential plan B. The Cardinals, who are watching their payroll carefully, wouldn't be opposed to moving him if a team is willing to take on most of the remaining money. One potential obstacle, Arenado has a full no-trade clause. Now, when it comes to Rafael Devers, we know what this guy can do with the bat. He's been one of the better bats in Major League Baseball for a while now. This past year, hit 272, a 354 on base, a 516 slugging, a 134 WRC plus, 28 homers, a 4.1 Fangraph wins above replacement overall. Yes, the bat is fantastic, but when it comes to the defense, it is a bit of an issue. I wouldn't even say a bit of an issue. In my opinion, it's a pretty big issue. If you go back the last 2 years, he is by far the worst defensive third baseman in baseball. Taking a look here, a negative 14 outs above average, a negative 10 fielding run value, negative 5.7 overall defense. He is by far the worst third baseman defensively. Now, listen, I love Rafi, but honestly, I think the Red Sox do need to make an improvement here, not just at third base, but just in the infield in general. They had the worst infield in Major League Baseball last year when it came to outs above average. Now, with Rafi, I think the most simple solution would be to improve the defense. If he can, work at it this offseason, then yeah, I think that is the most simple solution. But I still think at the end of the day, it's going to be a question mark. He's been given a lot of time now over the last few years to improve here, but you're still just seeing the numbers not all that great. Now, if the Red Sox were to turn to someone out there, I think Arenado could potentially be a guy. He's also a right-handed bat. The Red Sox are looking for right-handed bats. Yes, they are wanting to bring in Juan Soto too, but they are looking to add some balance here to this lineup. Now, you could move Rafael Devers to DH. I think you could move Masataka Yoshida in a deal, and then that could open up a spot at third base. There has been some talk of Rafi, maybe he can play first base if there's some kind of a deal possibly for Tristan Casas. I don't know about that. I think with Casas, he had the rib injury this past year, so that really hurt his trade value. And I think there's just a lot of upside with the bat there. I think the Red Sox are probably going to end up wanting to hang on to him in the end. So I think Rafi, if he does move off third base, I think DH would be the right spot for him. Maybe he can play some third base here and there, kind of like David Ortiz back in 2004, right? He did play a little first base that year, so maybe Rafi could do the same thing. Now, Nolan Arenado, yes, defensively, huge upgrade at third base. If you take a look here at the leaderboards that I was just looking at, in the last 2 years, 15 outs above average, 11 on the fielding run value. No question about the defense. The problem is the bat. It has been declining in the last few years. This past year, hit 272, on base at a 325, but the slugging under 400 at a 394, right around a league average WRC plus of 102. This guy has had some pretty good years in the past few years. Going back to 2021, had 34 homers that year. 2022, he had a great all-around season that year, but you can see the numbers start to dip in 23, had a 106 WRC plus that year, and then 102 for this year. I do wonder, though, with Arenado, if you could put him at Fenway Park, I wonder if that can help his numbers a little bit. Kind of like Mike Lowell back in 2005. Remember when the Red Sox traded for Josh Beckett, Mike Lowell at that time was considered a throw-in to the deal. He was coming off a terrible 2005 season with the Marlins. He went to Fenway Park, and that instantly helped his bat. This is a guy that ended up getting the World Series MVP in 2007 for the Red Sox. So, he went from, a guy that looked like he was at the end of his rope to being a World Series MVP 2 years later. I'm not saying that's going to happen with Nolan Arenado, but I think putting him at a place like Fenway Park and also putting some new voices in his ear. Sometimes, maybe being around a different coaching staff, maybe they can figure something out. They can help something out with the bat, get you going a little bit. But I do think Fenway Park would be a better fit for him with the monster. He's more of a pull guy. So as you can see here, a lot of outs would have either went off the monster or over the monster. So, Arenado, I would be intrigued with what he would be like at Fenway Park. Of course, the numbers have been declining, but again, put him in a favorable environment, a hitter's ballpark. I think there could be something there. There is another option out there the Red Sox have been connected to, Willy Adames. This guy coming off a very solid season. The defense was a bit down at shortstop this year, but he is willing to move to other positions, third base, second base. So I think having that versatility is very important for him. But very good offensively this year. The strikeouts were a little high with Willy Adames this year. That is another positive when it comes to Arenado. A guy that doesn't strike out all that much. He makes a lot of contact. When it comes to Adames, he is going to strike out more, so that is one thing to consider. But there is also another guy out there by the name of Alex Bregman, and that leads me to the next story. And that story is Alex Bregman is starting to draw some interest. So according to John Heyman, he says here, the Tigers are interested in star free agent third baseman Alex Bregman, which would give him a chance to reunite with manager AJ Hinch from their Houston days. And yes, the incumbent Astros are in with an offer. Ultimately, Bregman might be pricey for Detroit. He says here with the Red Sox. The Red Sox inquired and could be a fit for Bregman if they move Rafael Devers to first. So, it's not just Sean McAdam bringing this up. It's also John Heyman mentioning this. So I'm wondering if you're hearing a lot more behind the scenes than we might be thinking about Rafi moving off a third. I just find that interesting. But Alex Bregman, yes, he's been consistently one of the better third basemen in the game. On base at 315. He was a bit more aggressive this year. A guy that's had higher on base numbers in the past, but a guy that still doesn't strike out all that much. Had a slugging of 453, a 118 WRC plus, 26 homers. Defensively, yep, he continues to be one of the best defenders at third base. When it comes to the Astros, I've talked about this before. I just wonder how far the Astros are willing to go when it comes to a contract. They usually don't get too crazy in free agency. Sure, Josh Hader, Jose Abreu. Other than that, not all that much. They usually like to give out the bigger extensions, right? Hearing the Astros, that they've submitted an offer for Bregman, I think makes sense because they do have a hole at third base. It's not like they have someone that can just slide right in. So I think they would like to bring Bregman back. It would have to be the right terms for them. I don't think they're going to go absolutely crazy for Bregman, blow other teams out of the water. Would they be willing to go past 5 years for Bregman? I'm not sure. We'll see. But maybe the Astros, this is one of those guys where they feel like they need to hang on to this guy for a while. But I feel like they would have worked out an extension already. But if he decides to move on, yeah, sure. I definitely think the Tigers can be a fit here. You do have Jace Young. Last year he got an opportunity, but this is a guy, he didn't grab the job by the horns fully. And there are issues defensively with Jace Young. So I wonder if maybe you could use him as a trade piece, maybe acquire something to help the team elsewhere, and you can bring in Bregman to be your third baseman. I feel like they could use a bit more offense in this lineup. But getting back to the Red Sox, yeah, I think Bregman could be a fit here for sure. Right-handed bat, when it comes to Arenado, you've seen the numbers declining, but Bregman has stayed pretty steady. He's a couple years younger than Arenado as well. We'll just have to wait and see on this, but Alex Bregman, I do think in the end, he's going to get a solid payday. Let's wrap this up with some trade candidates like Jon Heyman talked about this weekend. And of course, when you think of the trade candidates, you got to think of Garrett Crochet. He goes on to say here, White Sox star starting pitcher Garrett Crochet is drawing big interest from the Orioles, Red Sox, Dodgers, and Phillies, among others. The Orioles and Red Sox are well stocked with position player talent Chicago seeks, while the O's surrendered some prospects at the deadline. This may be their best hope for an ace. Ultimately, they may have trouble outbidding bigger markets for Corbin Burnes. Now, I would love for the Orioles to hang on to Corbin Burnes. Obviously, just had a great season with them. It would be nice to see the Orioles pony up some money to keep him atop the rotation for years to come. But yeah, Garrett Crochet, absolutely, you could pivot to this guy. I just wonder if the Orioles are going to have the right package for Garrett Crochet. When I think of, a couple of their top prospects here, Kobe Mayo, Samuel Basallo, I think those guys are just too valuable at this point for Garrett Crochet. You got some other guys in the mix there, right? Maybe you could center a package around, Heston Kjerstad. You got Enrique Bradfield Jr. there. So maybe they could piece together something, but will that be a package that the White Sox like? Or, will the Orioles want to part with someone like Heston Kjerstad? If Anthony Santander doesn't come back here, Heston Kjerstad is probably in line to have the starting job. So I think the Red Sox, at this point, I think they have a very strong chance to land him. We've already seen reports that the White Sox, might be okay with Willie Abreu being a centerpiece there. They have some other prospects that they could, work around that to form a nice package there. Absolutely, I think the Red Sox have a shot at Crochet. I also think the Phillies have a shot too, right? They got some pretty good prospects atop the farm. Aiden Miller, you got Justin Crawford. When it comes to Willie Abreu, he is a major league ready player already. Will the White Sox want someone like that? Or would they be okay with guys that are getting closer to major league ready? It just depends on what the White Sox want. They want position players, but what is the timeline they're going to want? I think that's going to be the most important thing. The Dodgers, of course, Garrett Crochet, they were connected with him. Can they come back together and work out a different deal? But he also mentioned Josh Naylor. I think this one is very interesting. Now, Josh Naylor, he's going to be coming up on free agency. He's a free agent after next season. He made $6.5 million this past year. He's going to be getting a pay raise. Had himself a pretty decent year. Hit 243, had a 118 WRC plus with a 456 slugging, 31 home runs. The Guardians, they're a small market team. They got to be thinking ahead, kind of get value while they can before these guys hit free agency. And they also have someone like Kyle Manzardo, top prospect, who's going to be looking for some playing time. So I think the Pirates are perfect. Listen, the Pirates need a bat, but Bob freaking Nutting doesn't want to spend the money. So I think they're going to have to turn to the trade market. They have a huge hole at first base here. I think Josh Naylor would be absolutely perfect. Maybe the Nationals, right? They could use a bit more offense in this lineup. They could use a bit more pop. They ranked very low in home runs this past year. We talked about the Astros a little bit earlier. If Bregman doesn't come back, honestly, you could bring Bregman back, and you could still bring in Josh Naylor to be your first baseman. So I think the Astros could possibly easily be a contender there. Josh Naylor, I think he's an intriguing trade candidate this offseason. He goes on to talk about a couple other guys. Vlad Jr. Says here the Jays will first try to lock him up with the price tag likely to hit $350 million. I just don't see a situation where the Blue Jays trade him. I think they're going to want to go out there and be competitive next year. I don't know, unless maybe they get back a guy that can still help them compete, that's under control for the next several years. I don't know. I think Vlad at this point, I just don't see him moving anywhere. I think that's just bonkers. I think they need to, put forth a good extension offer for him and keep him there for the long haul. Nick Castellanos, I've talked about him as a trade candidate possibly. Go check out my video, One Trade for Each Team. I talked about Nick Castellanos there. He says here the Phillies may shake things up. Yeah, Nick Castellanos, really, he's a DH at this point. His defense out in the outfield is no bueno. They're trying to refresh this team a little bit, and they're probably going to have to eat some of the contract with Castellanos, but I could definitely see them moving on, trying to improve that defense. Gavin Lux, I've talked about him in my One Trade for Each Team video as well, especially with Mookie Betts coming back to the infield. Maybe they can go after someone like Adames or Ha-Sung Kim to play short. He mentioned Devin Williams, saying the Brewers suggested that they're keeping him, so maybe they hang on to him until the deadline. I could see this, right? Devin Williams obviously had the back injury this past year. He missed a lot of time, but he came back. He was very good. Yes, had the hiccup there in the postseason. Absolute heartbreaker there. But Devin Williams is easily one of the best closers in the game. And the Brewers, they want to compete every single year. Talk about Alec Boehm, part of a Philly shakeup, right? He's been in the rumor mill a little bit. There are teams out there that could use the third baseman. There's been some question marks about the attitude, the maturity with him. So I could see the Phillies maybe wanting to move on there, but he does have value because he had a pretty solid season and he has a little bit more control left until free agency. So he will bring back something pretty good. But let me know your thoughts down below. That's all I got for this video. If you can on the way out, hit that like button for me, subscribe if you're new, and I'll talk to you next time.